Okay, so can you see me okay here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, hi, I'm Andrea Schulte. I've been teaching here for going on 9 years at CNM. I've done a variety of things in the industry as a pastry chef. So I've been baking for many years. And today I'm going to share with you my favorite scone recipe. So pretty much every single holiday or family event, I'm always making scones. I used to own a business. It was a pie company called New Mexico Pie Company, but I did lots of scones because I supplied quite a few coffee shops around town. And I've done all kinds of baked goods for that. So I've done every kind of scone you can think of, from maple scone, pumpkin scone, cherry lemon scone, to savory scones like green chili cheddar scones. It's just one of my favorite things. So the recipe should be posted online. And today I'm going to serve this almond poppy seed scone with a strawberry apricot compote. So I'm going to start making that. So I have a little burner set up here. I'm going to turn that on. Hopefully you can still hear me when this is running. So I've got 10 ounces. Now you will have to have a little digital scale at home because I put my recipes pretty much in ounces because that's how I use them. So I've weighed out 10 ounces of dried apricots and I've cut them in quarters. And I've got 12 ounces of fresh quartered strawberries. If you can buy organic strawberries, they're usually more flavorful. So that's what these are. And then I've got some sugar. It's a cup of sugar or 7.5 ounces. Now with this compote, this is totally optional. You don't have to serve a scone with fresh fruit. You could do, you could buy some lemon curd or do some jam, which I do often. But I wanted to make this one extra special. And I've got some water. I've got 12 ounces of water. This one's extra special because why not? Because we want to make this into either like a brunch or even a dessert. I actually made this recipe this past weekend and served this almost like a brunch. It was breakfast. It was so good. Okay, so I'm going to start that cooking. And then I have the juice of 1 lemon that I've set off to the side. So this needs to cook until it's reduced and thickened. And it takes at least a half an hour to do this. It takes a little time to cook this down to a compote. So a fruit compote is a cooked down, thickened fruit mixture that's like a syrup, but it usually has dried fruit in it, but I added some fresh fruit also.
Do you want to tilt the pan, Andrea, so you can see what it looks like?
So it looks like this now. It looks like a watery mess right now. Not really a mess, but just it's just watery now, but we're going to let it cook for a little while. I do have some that I've made a few days ago that through the magic of TV, I have some finished.
Can we use?
Okay, so now we're going to start the scones. This could most definitely be done by hand in a bowl. I'm going to use the KitchenAid. And I know many people now have a KitchenAid mixer at home. And why not let the machine do some work for us? Because when you work the butter in by hand, it does take some time. I like to do things quick, especially around the holidays. So I've got some pastry flour. So this is weighed out. So this is 1 pound, 6 ounces. This is going to make 16 scones. And what I always like to make a pretty good sized batch of scones because then I can freeze some of them at home and then bake them whenever I want them. So I freeze the dough. So I've got 1 pound, 6 ounces of pastry flour. Now, it's kind of hard to find pastry flour. I have seen it at Sprouts, made by Bob's Red Mill. So if you can't find it, you can definitely get half all-purpose flour and half cake flour and mix those together. Or you can just use all-purpose flour and that's fine. So now I'm going to add my sugar. So it's 3.5 ounces of sugar. It's about half of a cup. I've got baking powder, 4 teaspoons. Poppy seeds. These are optional, but I love them and they make the scones even more moist. And I've got some salt. The salt, let's see, how much do I have here? That's a teaspoon. Now I'm going to whisk everything together so we don't have any little pockets of baking powder or salt in the dry ingredients.
How long can you freeze the dough, Andrea?
As long as you freeze it firm and then put it in Ziploc bags once the scones are pre-formed, a couple of months, as long as your freezer doesn't have a problem with defrosting and getting crystals of ice in the freezer. So as long as your freezer is in really good shape, a few months is fine, but they might not last that long. So I'm going to put this on the KitchenAid machine here with the paddle attachment. And then I have my butter. So the butter, I have 5 ounces. So the key to doing pie crust or scones or anything where you have to break the butter down, where it's mimicking what you would do by hand or with a pastry blender to break it down into really small pieces. When you do this in the mixer, in the machine, you want to have butter that's, and it specifies on the recipe, 1/4 inch dice. So little diced cubes of butter, and you want it to be cold. So I just pulled this out of the refrigerator. So put all the butter in there. And then the machine's going to break it down into smaller pieces. So you want to have small pea-sized pieces. And this is where you could work it by hand to break that butter down, but your hands get warm as you're breaking it, and some of it will end up really smushed. So I do like to use the machine because it saves me lots of time. While I had a bakery, we would do one of those great big mixers, the 60-quart mixers, and usually do about 200 scones at a time. So I've taken my recipes and sized them down to what you can do at home. And also what I teach scones in the beginning or intermediate class when I teach those classes. And I teach a lot of advanced baking and pastry as well. And then once things open back up again, we usually like to have classes open to the public. So be on the lookout for that. So I'm going to turn the heat up on my burner a little bit. Some of the classes that I've taught the public, basically anyone, when I say the public, anyone can come to these classes. So I've done artisan breads where I teach the basics of how to make baguettes, pizza dough, things like ciabatta bread. And then I've taught a pie class. I've done some confection and holiday cookie classes. So that's through the Workforce Training Center. But I teach right here in the RPM building.
Andrea, when you're making your scones, what are some of the best fruits to use?
Well, on the recipe, you have a variation. One of my other favorites would be currants, which is very classic for English scones. A currant is a little miniature, more special variety of a raisin, and they're teeny tiny. They're round. Here locally in Albuquerque, you can find them at Sprouts, probably at Whole Foods also. I don't usually see them at Walmart or Smith's. Looking at like Sprouts, Trader Joe's, or Whole Foods, you can find currants. It's a dried fruit. It gives a really nice subtle flavor to the scones. And so if that were the case, you could just add currants to this recipe with the almond poppy, or you could take out the almond and add lemon, pure lemon juice and lemon extract instead. So other favorites. So once you have this basic recipe, you could change it around to be whatever you like. So you could do dried cherry and lemon. You could do dried cranberry and orange. So any type of fruit that you like.
And can you use fresh apricots instead of the dried apricot?
Yes, you can do a fresh fruit scone, but it is going to be a lot more moist and wet. So the same thing if you put fresh raspberries in a scone, they kind of smush into the scone and they bleed. So it's going to look like blueberry scones, but that's okay because they're really good. So
no, I was actually asking about the compote.
The compote?
Yeah, you had, yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
Thanks.
in the scones you could do fresh or dried fruit. However, I left the fruit out of the scones today because I'm doing the compote. So you could do a mixture of dried and frozen cherries. You could do dried cherries and dried cherries with fresh raspberries. I decided to do strawberries because they're in season right now. So whatever the season is. So if it's winter time, you could do cherries and maybe put some spices like cinnamon and cardamom, some nutmeg into your compote. Dried and fresh blueberries would be really good if you do a combination, or you could totally just do all dried fruit, because the fresh fruit does break up as you cook it. So here's what it looks like once it's done. And the strawberries break down. So actually what I did is I added a little bit of diced strawberries into the compote, and it gets really nice and syrupy.
Oh,
So-
okay, that's why you need the dried fruit. Okay.
If I can show it in a little closer.
So I have a question. I don't have a mixer, but I do have a food processor. Can you make the dough in that?
In the food processor is the question. Yes. You would put all of your dry ingredients. First, you'd whisk them together, put them in the food processor, then add your diced butter because it breaks down much nicer if it's already diced. So make sure the butter is cold, and then just pulse it a few times until you have smaller pea-sized pieces of your butter. So now, and I'll show what this looks like in just a minute. It's almost done. I like using the mixer on low to medium speed because it's very gentle with how it breaks down the fat into the dry ingredients. As far as butter goes, the better quality butter that you use, the better scone will be. So today I'm using a pretty expensive butter. It's called Plugra. You can buy it at Smith's and Whole Foods. It's Plugra. And it's a very high in fat butter content of butter.
And why does the fat content of the butter matter, Andrea?
Because the cheaper types of butter have more water content in them. So we want more butter fat. And now more and more you're going to find on the ingredient label of the butter where it says 86% butter fat, or you can actually look it up online, Google the different brands. You're looking for between 84 to 86% fat content. My other favorite, and I love this butter for all baking, is Land O'Lakes. Okay, so now, can you see this on the camera?
Yes.
The butter is broken down because I already cut it into little chunks, but it broke down into the dry ingredients into like pea-sized pieces. And that's good. I don't want to completely break the butter down until it disintegrates because I want little chunks of fat, which is going to give me the flakiness. Oh, and put it back on the machine. And then I'm going to add my wet ingredients.
If you don't have the mixer or the food processor, can we just use the pastry cutter to do this thing?
Yes, you could definitely do this by hand in a bowl with a pastry cutter. Your hands get a little bit more messy, and if you don't have a mixer, that's good. That's the way that I learned how to do it. So now that I teach how to make larger batches, we have to be able, I teach a way that you could then use a larger mixer and then go make larger batches in the industry. But most people have, not most, but a good amount of people have a mixer at home. So I like to teach with the mixer. Okay, I have my almond extract, 2 teaspoons. And if I was doing a lemon scone, I might just use some lemon extract instead and some lemon juice. And I give you the variation on your recipe. Then heavy cream. So on the recipe, it says 16 ounces divided. So I'm going to put 14 and a half ounces in the scone. And then I've saved aside the rest, which I'll show you that in a minute. I put 1.5 ounces in a little container because we're going to put more cream on top of the scone. And I'm just stirring my compote every now and then as it cooks. It's going to cook until most of the liquid is cooked down and absorbed. Okay, so that was really quick in the machine. I didn't want to overwork it. I'm going to put a little bit of AP flour on my bench, on my table. I'm actually going to put some gloves on because this gets really messy and I don't have a sink where I'm going to wash my hands. So I'll just put some gloves on because I'm going to do multiple things here.
Aileen, I do think that butter is one of the 4 food groups, and it's certainly part of dairy, so it's a nice whole food and nice and healthy for you.
I'm just going to clean off the paddle. Don't want to waste any of this good stuff. And you can see the little, all the little specks of the poppy seeds. I don't want to overwork this, but just really gently, I'm gonna knead it just a little bit. And then I'm gonna divide it into 2 pieces. I'm just gonna eye it. Okay, and you could definitely roll the scones out and use cookie cutters and make rounds. But I like to do it this way because it's easier and I don't have any waste. Because if you roll things out and use a cookie cutter, then you have waste that you have to go back and re-roll, and then it gets tough. And I want to keep my scones really nice and tender and moist. So I'm just forming these into a circle that's about around 8 inches and 7 to 8 inches in diameter. And I'm smoothing out the sides. I'm making sure I don't have any cracks. So I wasn't kidding when I told you guys that I make these like for every holiday. My mom loves these. She and I have loved scones and afternoon tea, and then my family really got into it. So we have them, the whole group of us, we have them on Thanksgiving, we have them on Christmas. I made them for July 4th this past year. Why not? We do them for New Year's. It's just what I get requests for because it's what we do for like any holiday breakfast. I don't always do the compote though. This one I'm just doing it to make it more of a dessert, but usually sometimes I'll make lemon curd and just get really good jam and serve it with that and coffee and tea. I have a 3-year-old niece, and the scones, since she learned how to eat, she loves my scones.
Well, they were talking earlier, Andrea, that they love your pies too.
So some of them have taken the pie
Yeah,
class.
so some of them have, they know all about your pie business and they're a fan of your pies. So
they've been to New Mexico Pie
Yep.
Company. Oh, cool. Okay, so now I have the reserved cream in a little container. You can do a little bowl at home, a brush, and I have chopped almonds here, or you could do sliced, and you don't want to toast them because they're going to toast in the oven. So untoasted nuts. This is called a bench scraper. I'm going to use this to clean off the table when I'm done. And I could cut with these, but I like to use a knife. Just check to make sure I rounded it really nicely, and just cut this into 8 equal wedges. I'm just going to eye it. And the second one. So this recipe has a lot more cream than it does butter, and that's what's going to make it a cream scone. Yes, you could do a scone that doesn't have any butter. It's just completely all cream, and it's really soft, but it only lasts for 1 day. This one, although they're best the day that you eat them, I like to bake them fresh. They'll last about 2 days, but this one has a lot more cream than butter because the butter gives it some flakiness, but I don't want this to be flaky like a pie crust. I want it to be more soft, which is why it has more cream. Okay, I've got my scones. I've got 2 baking sheets. And just lay them out with some
we just showed them
space.
one wedge.
So here's what they look like. They're cute little triangles. And then I'll lift this pan up in just a second and show you what it looks like. Just like that. Now, if I was going to freeze them and not bake them right now, I would probably just put them closer together like this and just line them up, put them all on one pan, brush my cream on. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Get them all ready to go for the oven and then just put them in the freezer. And once they are frozen hard, I put them in Ziploc bags, and then that's how I save them, and then let them temper or come to back to a cool room temperature from the freezer, like on my baking pan, before I bake them.
So you wouldn't bake them from frozen?
No, because they would rise differently because they're really hard in the center. So I would temper them down to just cold temperature, but you just press them to see if they have some give. And then I'm gonna just brush them with heavy cream. It's classic in a cream scone, or the British way. So the English, some of their recipes use heavy cream. A lot of them I've noticed use milk, but they're gonna be a little more, honestly, a little more dry. I like my scones pretty moist because I don't want to eat something that I have to completely slather just to be able to eat it. So I like to use heavy cream, make it really rich. And then while that's still wet from the heavy cream, sprinkle and kind of press on some almonds because they're going to bake right on top. Some of them are going to fall off, but just press them on, just put on there what will stick. And you could definitely change this out if you don't like almonds. You could take the nuts out and don't do almond, do like lemon poppy or lemon currant poppy scone. If you've never tried currants, they're really good in a scone because they're not overpowering the way a cranberry would be. They're more, they're smaller and they have a more delicate flavor, I should say.
They're looking beautiful.
Put that aside. To the next pan. So this compote will take up to an hour to cook down. Well, it's getting pretty close. This is an induction burner, and it cooks really, really fast. So it's getting close. Just have to make sure I don't burn the bottom as I stir it. What other questions does anyone have for me about scones?
Do you suggest doing 2 different types of fruit for the scones and the compote, or just one? Do you serve a variety when you have breakfast?
Well, if I'm going to make a fruit compote, if I'm going to choose a fruit to put in the scone, I would probably do currants because it's more gentle of a flavor. It's not overpowering. But I took the fruit out of the scones if I do the fruit compote, because then I think it's just a little overkill. So you could pick one or the other. You definitely don't have to do both. So if you just don't want to make the fruit compote, you just want to make scones, then you could add a fruit to it.
I think my favorite is lemon curd.
I thought about doing lemon curd today, but
I have some Meyer lemons at home, so I was going to make some lemon curd this weekend. So maybe I'll make your scones with just like lemon poppy.
That would be awesome.
If I do, I'll send you a picture. They're not going to look as beautiful as yours, Andrea.
So the pastry flour, you said it's hard to find. Are you talking about the whole wheat pastry flour or just the regular pastry flour?
The pastry flour that you can purchase. So I've seen it at Sprouts, Bob's Red Mill. Of course, you can find it on Amazon, but you could just use all-purpose.
Okay.
It might need just a little bit more cream.
Okay.
So it's not the whole wheat.
No, it's not whole wheat. So pastry flour has less protein than all-purpose flour. So it's a lighter flour, but it's a little heavier than cake flour. So you could actually buy cake flour and all-purpose, because most grocery stores have both of those, and mix half cake flour and half pastry flour. I'm sorry, let me back up. Half cake flour, half all-purpose, and that makes pastry flour.
Okay.
And they're all different because of the protein contents in the flour, because all-purpose has more protein than pastry or cake flour does. And the lighter flours, like pastry flour and cake flour, make a lighter pastry. It's more melt in your mouth.
So
I'm
here's
gonna
a
make the
weird
whipped cream.
question. So we
Yes.
got a weird question here. What did you use? Oh, well, what did we use the Raisin Bran for in the background? That's Carrie's breakfast. That's Chef Carrie's breakfast, guys. That's her own box of cereal there. Yeah, we don't actually use Raisin Bran for anything.
I have a question. Do you think you guys will be able to do those C&M dinners again sometime soon?
We're hoping whenever we get back up to normal operations. So when we go back to regular operations and we're able to expand the caps of our classes, because right now our lab classes have to be really small and we have restrictions on the amount of folks that are in the building and or in our labs. And right now the bistro can only hold 13 and it takes about 16 students to run that class. So we hope that it's our hope because that is a better experience for our students. But right now we are subbing. We have that class running as a regular course, or students can do an internship in the industry, and that would count for that course as well. So that's kind of what we're doing right now.
Okay, now that my compote's almost done, it's starting to look like jam. In fact, it got almost dark on the bottom, but whoa, it looks really good and jammy. So it's getting close. Add the lemon juice, so it's just a tablespoon of lemon juice, fresh. It was just squeezed a little while ago. I would recommend not buying the little bottles that look like a lemon or lime. The flavor is never going to be very good, so squeeze fresh. I'll show you a tool that I use. You can buy these at pretty much any store now, Target, Walmart, Williams-Sonoma, any online. So cut your lemon in half, put the half cut side down with the little holes there, and then squeeze the lemon. And these are really handy. That's how I squeeze my
Thanks for telling folks to put the cut side down. A lot of folks try to put the peel on the bottom and then don't understand why it's leaking all over and not coming out of the bottom.
Go into your eye.
Yeah, we did a mixology class and a lot of folks had that a little backwards.
It's just the shape of it, like, oh,
Right.
it's perfect.
Yeah, they think the shape fits, but we want to do opposite.
Since I'm doing this kind of like a cross between a dessert or a brunch dessert, and yes, you can have this for breakfast, why not? I'm making whipped cream. So I'm doing 8 ounces of heavy cream, 2 teaspoons of sugar, granulated sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And I always use pure vanilla extract. It does cost more, but it is so worth it because the imitation tastes like imitation. So if you're looking for the best price in Albuquerque, I've gone all over the place to cost them out. Costco actually has really good price for that.
That's where I get my vanilla. Thanks, Chef. And it's a good size too. I'm not sure if everyone uses as much vanilla as I do, or if I just use a healthy amount, but the little tiny vanillas in the grocery store, they're so little.
Yeah, they're so little, and really, if you look at the price per ounce, they are ridiculous, ridiculously expensive. Okay, so I'm gonna whip this to a soft peak so I can dollop it right on the plate. So it doesn't take very long. Yes, you could do this by hand. Just takes a lot of wrist power. So I always say if you have a machine, you might as well use it. Unless you just don't like using the machine.
And you did use a fresh bowl on that, correct?
Yes, a clean bowl. It's cold heavy cream because once it gets warm, it doesn't want to whip very well. And the heavy whipping cream does have more fat, although the cream from Costco actually works pretty well too. It doesn't say heavy whipping cream, but it says heavy cream and it whips really well.
That's where I get my cream also. We're like a commercial for Costco here, guys. What about thoughts on using your vanilla paste? Not only for this, but in general.
You can buy vanilla paste on Amazon. I haven't seen it anywhere locally. It's just a thicker, like gooier consistency of a vanilla extract, and it has the beans ground up into it.
So it gives a nice flex.
But the only problem with that is it also has sugar in it. So if you're trying to do sugar-free, It's okay. It's not my favorite thing. I like the beans better if you're gonna go that route. I just don't like that it has sugar in it. So sometimes I'll use it, but usually I just use vanilla extract or vanilla beans.
And which attachment did you use for the cream?
Whip attachment. It whips air into the product. I'm gonna go just a little more, almost there. Okay, so this cooked extremely fast. It got very dark and jammy. I was really trying to cook it fast. I had it on the highest of heat, but wow, this color is pretty amazing. So this reacted differently than when I cooked it at home. So it's very thick and jammy.
Well, and the
Like
heat
that.
does make a difference, right?
Yes, and getting that much color out of your berries from cooking that over a boiling high heat is really nice.
I like your word, jammy. It just sounds fun.
So this is soft peaks. I just want to be able to show you some putting it in this container. I mean, it really does look like a jam.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
You got to be careful because if you walk away from heavy cream when you're whipping it, especially when it's a small amount like this, it will separate and turn grainy and over whip. And if that happens, you can mix a little bit more liquid heavy cream into it by hand, but there's not much you can do to save it. Okay, and then I'll show you the finished product because I have a scone on a plate here.
Ta-da.
So you could actually over whip the whipping cream?
Yes, if you walk away, it will get very, very firm textured, and then it will start to separate, and it's called over whipped.
So how long do we whip it? Is there a time limit? Or you just eyeball?
Until it's kind of soft and smushy, but holds a shape. So
Okay.
you can dollop it onto your
And
dessert.
it's, some of it will depend on how cold your cream is and if you have your bowl cold before.
Yeah, my bowl was room temperature, so it only took about like a minute. So it happens pretty quickly because the heavy whipping cream has a lot of fat in it, so it whips up pretty quick. So you could dollop everything on the side of the scone here, or you could cut it in half. If the scone is warm, it won't cut as easily. I just baked this a couple of hours ago today. And it is very tender, so it does want to easily break apart because it's so tender. And then I'm just gonna I have some additional fresh sliced strawberries. Now this compote is very hot, so I don't think I'm gonna put that one on there. I'll do this one that I made earlier. Just makes a sauce. Now, if you don't want to do the compote, you could actually just do strawberries that you toss in some granulated sugar, and it's called macerating. So you toss it in the sugar and they're going to get really juicy just from the sugar. Just let it sit for a little while. So you definitely don't have to cook this down, but then you could say you made a compote if you do it. And I'm going to put some fresh strawberries on top. And some fresh whipped cream. So this is almost like doing a strawberry shortcake, just a little bit different variation with a scone. Just like that. And that'll be a really good kind of decadent breakfast. Can I answer any other questions?
Beautiful, delicious, yummy. Wow, oh my.
Don't you wish you were all here to eat it right
Right,
now?
if you were all here. So look at me and Carlos, we get like 16 scones all to ourselves. Just kidding. We're gonna share.
Did you want to get a close up of it?
Yeah.
And they look really good.
Yeah, thank you. That was wonderful.
There you go.
Well, thank you guys.
Like Renee just said, Dawn and I are here.
Come
I
on
think
up.
you need to have a regular class, a Zoom class.
Yeah, all of our students right now, we've got hybrid classes going on in our labs. So we have students that are, Chef Andrea and Chef Carrie recorded a lot of their demos over the at the end of summer and over the fall term. So they've got a ton of demos on YouTube that are available for students so that they can check out their demos, look at what's going on, so that when students come into class, they can come in and get right to work. We've got single stations set up. As I said, we're only allowed to have about 8 to 10 students in the labs. And that makes for a little bit different learning environment. And we've got less students altogether. So the students that are here are very committed and are doing really great work. But it's a little bit different. Our production obviously is slowed down a lot because of the pandemic. So, and we're, you know, unfortunately we can't have the bake sales and things like that. But as soon as we get started again, hopefully we'll be able to do some more of that. Chef Andrea also teaches our entrepreneurship courses for baking and pastry as well as for culinary arts. So students that are interested in food trucks, catering, or other entrepreneurship courses that surround food and beverage, she teaches that lab and that theory class as well.
Anyone else have any more questions?
Thank you so much, Andrea. This is amazing and looks
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you.
Wish I was there to taste it as well.
Hopefully you'll be inspired to make it at home.
Great. So if there's any other questions,
Can we have another class maybe next month over the summer?
Maybe next month. Yeah, let us know.
Okay.
a great, great intro. We do this every second Wednesday of the month. So I believe June, if I have my dates
Oh.
correct, it would be June 9th. We'll have a morning session and an afternoon session, and we'll let you know that information. And as we have said, this demo will be recorded and on our CNM Cares Crew website for review in the future. And if you have any other questions, let us know. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye-bye.